people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the mother relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, and now it's time for our weekend recap. We're going to kick it off with the rematch between Katie Taylor and Chantel Cameron, which I predicted would end in a points win for Katie Taylor. Let's talk about the first round. I gave the first round to Chantel Cameron, applying a lot of pressure and landing a lot of clean punching. Some discourse over what people felt should have been a knockdown off a clean jab. Looked like a clean jab, but to the ref, it looked like Katie's feet got crossed up. So he ruled it a slip. I scored the first round for Chantel Cameron. I scored the second round for Chantel Cameron. Though it was pretty nip and tuck. It was a difficult round to score. There were a lot of rounds like this in this fight. Though because Chantel's punches seemed heavier and more eye-catching, I gave the second round to Chantel. I gave the third round to Katie off of clean combinations. Taking the initiative and growing into the fight with those rapid-fire combinations, I gave the third round to Katie. I gave the fourth round to Katie. Off of eye-catching punches in the exchange, that's the round where that deep gash opened up on Chantel Cameron's forehead off a clash of heads. Was a bad cut, and I gave that fourth round to Katie Taylor. I gave the fifth round to Katie Taylor. She just nicked it for me off of movement and counters. I gave the sixth round to Chantel Cameron off cleaner punches, though once again, it was very nip and tuck. Looked like a swing round to me that you could have swung either way. You could have gave it to Katie, but I gave it to Chantel. Gave the seventh round to Katie Taylor, initiating the exchanges in what was once again a very tight round, and I gave the eighth round to Chantel Cameron, dominating the pocket off short uppercuts mid-range to inside as Katie Taylor was exhausted and losing form. Katie didn't do a whole lot in that round except try to smother Chantel's work by holding, and Chantel still managed to get in some eye-catching uppercuts in that round. I gave the ninth round to Katie Taylor for moving and punching and being better in the exchange, faster hands, mid-range to inside. I gave the ninth to Katie. I gave the 10th to Chantel. 5 rounds to 5, tie score, a draw. That's how I had it. Coincidentally, that's how one of the 3 judges had the fight, 95-95, a draw. That was Ferenc Budai. Though being honest with you, a fight this close, at least to me, is a fight that could have gone either way. If somebody has Chantel Cameron winning the fight by a point or two, I could understand, but I can also understand somebody who's got the fight 6-4 in favor of Katie Taylor because it was that tight and that competitive. What did Katie Taylor do differently in this fight that she didn't do in the first one? And it's what I told you. Instead of trying to keep away and keep space and work on the outside of Chantel Cameron, you saw Katie in this fight stay on the inside, stay with Chantel, initiate those exchanges, get off those combinations. Don't let Chantel bully you around. Knowing that she made that adjustment in the first fight, in the middle of it, making the decision to fight Chantel Cameron off, I figured in the rematch, she'll expand upon that, capitalize. Dealing with a bully, fighter with a bully-like style, retreating and keeping distance is not the way to go. The best way to deal with a bully and a bully-style fighter is to confront them. Stand your ground. And Katie Taylor did more of that in this fight than she did the first one. She did that in the exchange, getting off those rapid-fire combinations. She did that in the pocket. She did that by smothering Chantel Cameron. You will notice a lot of people complaining about the holding, the constant holding from Katie Taylor. For those of you that managed to catch my prediction video, I told you I was expecting some hitting and some holding from Katie Taylor. You're better off tying up Chantel, tying her arms up, than retreating. Looking to create space from Chantel is not the way to go, not for Katie, because Chantel is a little taller and a little longer. Boxing her from the outside, it's just not the way to go, not for Katie. It's staying with her on the inside and tying her up when you need a break, tying her up when you want to stop her from gaining momentum and getting off punches, tying her up and smothering her, even if some of the fans don't like it. It's the better strategy.
One of the judges had the fight 98-92 in favor of Katie Taylor.
It was Jan Christensen. Even though I had Katie Taylor winning a points decision in my prediction video, and even if I could see how someone would have scored it that way, I can't see how you would have had it 98-92. That's far too wide. But that's how Jan Christensen had it. One of the other judges, Steve Morrow, his scorecard makes a lot more sense to me. 96-94.
That I could see, that I could understand, that I can agree with a lot more than 98-92.
There certainly is a precedence for a trilogy, a rubber match. Chantel having won the first one and Katie winning the rematch, but that's not Katie's only option. She also has the option of revisiting the Amandia Serrano fight, lest we forget. Amandia Serrano gave Katie the fight of her life, came very close to stopping her in their meeting. I could go for a Serrano rematch just as much as I could go for a Cameron rematch. And I say this because in spite of Katie suggesting that they run it back one more time at Croke Park, I don't know how Chantel is going to feel about fighting on Irish soil again. I don't know that Chantel doesn't just want to move up, go to 147, and maybe fight Sandy Ryan or the winner of Jonas versus Mayer.
In the event that Chantel Cameron doesn't want a third fight, that she feels she's at a great disadvantage having all these fights on Irish soil and she forgoes a trilogy, Katie can always fight Amanda. Amanda is willing.
What was a sensational fight, a crowd-pleasing fight that had a crowd-pleasing aesthetic, Chantel and Katie did not disappoint yesterday.
What is prevalent with the big fights, the big women fights, is that they actually live up to the hype, unlike some of the men's fights, unlike fights like Stevenson versus De Los Santos.
Congratulations to Katie Taylor for becoming a two-time undisputed champion. It's hard enough to do it once. Katie, she managed to do it twice. We then come to the IBF super lightweight title fight on the PBC show. The IBF title fight between Subriel Matias, the champion, and Shohan Ergashev, the then unbeaten challenger, who for the first 2 rounds was giving Subriel Matias all he could handle off movement and straight punches, long range. A lot of activity and a lot of punches landed. It was looking bleak for Subriel Matias at the start of this thing. Not dissimilar from what we saw in the Jeremias Ponce fight before this.
Jeremias Ponce, like Shohan Ergashev, got off to a very fast start, putting punches together, and then, like now, eventually Subriel Matias grew into the fight, found himself getting into the fight, and subsequently dominated. It took him 2 rounds.
After getting caught hard in the first round, losing his footing and sent careening into the ropes, more of the same in the second, it was in the third that you saw Subriel open up and start barreling forward, burrowing
into the pocket and putting punches together. Subriel Matias is a mid-range to inside fighter, a hooker.
And you don't hook with a hooker. You know what they say, that's a bad idea. Shohan Ergashev didn't really try to. He tried to keep distance and create space, backing off, found himself with his back on the ropes as Subriel Matias continued to barrel and burrow forwards.
Walking through Shohan Ergashev's straight punches, straight shots, some were getting in and some weren't. None of them discouraged Subriel Matias, who kept stringing punches together and kept overpowering Shohan Ergashev.
Ahead of the fight, I think most people familiar with both fighters, they were expecting a gunfight, and that's exactly what they got. But it seems that Subriel Matias brought the bigger guns to the gun show.
Apparently.
After 2 rounds of Shohan Ergashev letting his hands go and surviving that onslaught, Subriel Matias let his hands go for the next 2 rounds, and that was enough for Shohan Ergashev to go back to his corner after the 4th and decide he's not coming back out for a 5th. Subriel Matias is a very strong puncher, a dangerous puncher, and a dangerous champion. It's hard to imagine that fighters like Teofimo Lopez or Devin Haney would want anything to do with him. Fighters like Ryan Garcia, capable fighter that Subriel Matias might be, made for television. There's not a big reward attached to fighting him, and I don't think they want his red belt enough to roll the dice with him. The only fighter and the only champion I see still calling for a fight with Subriel Matias is Regis Prograrius, ahead of his upcoming fight with Devin Haney. Though if he loses,
There goes the neighborhood.
cynical as it may seem, it's very hard to imagine that anybody's going to want to go in there with a big puncher like Subriel Matias, an active puncher, without a big cash reward attached to the fight. Post-fight, he called out the big names, Subriel Matias. He called out the fighters that he wants to fight, and I think he's going to come up short of luck. That's essentially saying that his best bet at landing a unification match relies on Regis Prograrius beating Devin Haney, and I'm not sure that he can.
Given the state at the weight, a part of me feels like it might actually be better for the division if Regis Prograis wins than Devin Haney, because who knows what Devin Haney's plans are beyond the Regis Prograis fight. I heard some blurb about Bill Haney, his father, saying they're open to the idea of a Keith Thurman fight at 147, but who's asking for that?
In any event, Subriel Matias last night was able to stay in character and stay IBF super lightweight champion the best way he knows how, beating the other man to a bloody pulp. And that's more or less what I was expecting. Congratulations to him, one of Puerto Rico's deadliest fighters in the sport today. We then come to the main event of that same card, the Battle of the Unbeatens. Unbeaten David Benavidez versus unbeaten Demetrius Andrade, the former two-division champion against the current reigning WBC interim champion. I went with David Benavidez to win this fight, and I went with David to win on points. I thought the fight would go the distance. He did a little better than that. He impressed me. He actually stopped Demetrius Andrade. Let's talk about what we saw. In the early goings of the match, the first round, the second round, and even the beginning, or at least the first minute and a half of the third, Demetrius Andrade was holding his own and doing all right.
Moving and punching and managing the distance, fighting out of a wide stance. Demetrius, he keeps a very wide base.
Legs spread out, hunkering down, allowing him to change levels, though not necessarily all that good for his balance. His balance overall in any event, the first round, the second round, even parts of the third, he was doing all right.
Circling David Benavidez and holding his own, getting off rapid-fire combinations, fast flurries that didn't really have a noticeable effect on David Benavidez, but they were coming in fast.
He couldn't put a dent in David or stop him from barreling forward, stop him from coming forward, but he was getting off and looking all right doing it throughout rounds 1, 2, and parts of 3, but it's towards the tail end of the third round.
It was all downhill from there.
Demetrius started to unravel. Almost immediately, you notice the discrepancy in size between the fighters, that David Benavidez almost looks like he's in a completely different weight class to the more slender and slinky Demetrius Andrade, that in terms of the tail of the tape, there's not much between them.
In terms of their height and length, but in terms of body, David Benavidez was so obviously the naturally bigger guy that once both boys rehydrated, you could see the difference. And you could see the difference when David lands a punch and when Demetrius lands a punch.
Those rapid-fire combinations from Demetrius, as eye-catching as they were, sharp, fast punches, they had almost no effect on David Benavidez, whereas David, whenever he got in with a shot, he moved Demetrius's entire body. We're talking about hard hooks upstairs and body shots downstairs. Demetrius, in the early goings of the fight, almost completely lost his footing due to a body shot that David Benavidez landed.
He moved his whole body with the punch.
But it wasn't until the tail end of the third round that Demetrius started to unravel. He started off all right, but David Benavidez starts coming on, putting pressure on him, and putting punches together, mid-range to inside. That is David Benavidez's sweet spot, where Demetrius is more of a long-range puncher, David is a short-range puncher, a close quarters fighter, and that's where he did his best work. I have to say that not only did I like his power, but I liked his shot selection and his variety of punches, that he wasn't just headhunting.
I think he put something downstairs in almost every single round of this fight. It's like he was making a conscious effort to go to Demetrius' body because he knows he's going to be a moving target. He's going to try to be as long as you let him. So if you want to take his legs away, you go to the body.
And he went to the body several times. It was having a noticeable effect on Demetrius, who started to slow down after the third round. The body shots were getting to him, the head punches were getting to him. He couldn't take them. In the fourth round,
While still going to his body, it looks like David got in with a belt line shot, and Demetrius cried to the ref that it was low. It didn't look like a low blow, but to Demetrius it was. The ref wasn't buying it.
and this is where he really started to unravel. The fourth round was a punishing round for Demetrius Andrade. He got knocked down for the first time in the fight in the fourth round, and it was all downhill from there. In the fifth round,
It was more of the same. The pressure, the pace, and the power was all getting to Demetrius Andrade quickly.
he was coming apart at the seams in the fourth and fifth rounds, coming apart at the seams and coming apart fast. At the start of the sixth round, under the mounting pressure from David Benavidez, Demetrius pulls a veteran tactic and spits out his own mouth guard.
He spits out his mouth guard to buy him some time, knowing that it will. But the fact that he started off the round doing this means that when he returned to his corner at the fifth round, it wasn't enough of a break for him. He needed more time, and he tried to buy some by spitting out his gum shield.
In the sixth, Demetrius Andrade, still trying to hang on and trying to stay in this fight, gets off an eye-catching flurry that has no effect on David Benavidez, at which point David Benavidez knocks his mouthpiece out of his mouth.
Demetrius didn't have to spit it out that time. David knocked it out his mouth for him.
The sixth round turned out to be yet another punishing round like the fifth round and the fourth round before it. Demetrius, you could see he wasn't going to go the distance, not tonight, and he returns to his corner after a punishing sixth round. You can see Demetrius Andrade instruct his corner to stop the fight. You can see Demetrius Andrade quit. There is no other way for me to describe it. It's not the corner making that decision for him. If you're paying attention and you're watching the fight, you will have seen Demetrius Andrade instruct his corner to stop it, at which they signaled to the ref.
Demetrius made that decision. Neither his corner or the referee made that decision for him. He made that decision, and when that happens in this sport, what that means is he quit.
How Billy Joe Saunders quit in the Canelo Alvarez fight, how Daniel Dubois quit in the Joe Joyce and Alexander Usyk fights. When it's the fighter deciding that he doesn't want to go on and he doesn't want to get up or come out for the next round, you quit.
There's no nice way for me to say that, but who says I'm trying to be nice? What I'm trying to be is objective.
Demetrius Andrade finally stepped up in class in what would have been a signature fight and a signature win for him had he won the fight, but it seems that as soon as Demetrius stepped up, he got shut down. And I don't want to hear about how he was fighting a naturally bigger man, because Canelo Alvarez, who he likes to criticize, he fights naturally bigger men all the time.
When he fought a naturally bigger man in Dimitri Bivol up there at light heavyweight, north of where this contest took place, Demetrius was ragging him.
He's ragging on him, tearing him down, saying that he lost to a quote-unquote basic fighter. That's what Demetrius had to say. Thus, don't expect sympathy when you find yourself in that same situation. In a division that Canelo Alvarez already unified.
Made it look easy. He did it in 11 months, whereas 2 fights into your campaign at this same weight, you get destroyed. You get annihilated. I expected better.
I will be talking more about it in another video. Congratulations to David Benavidez, who I picked to win a points decision, and he did a little better than that, and he actually stopped the guy in sensational fashion.